I know normally in the tradition of speakers at Jewish affairs, the order of events is usually you open up with Dvar Torah, possibly a joke or a story or an article. You say the Dvar Torah and you finish off with the thank yous. I'd like to switch that today only because I feel so overwhelmed with emotion, gratitude both to Hashem, to many people in this room, that I'd like to start off with the thank yous first. First things first is I'd love to thank Kadosh Baruch Hu, who has blessed my family, our community with so much good. And even though sometimes there's a lot of difficulty and hardness, overwhelmingly, if you're sitting in this room and you're sitting in a chair and you're eating something, our lives are so much better than some of the people who are not in this room. So I want to thank Kadosh Baruch Hu for that. Next, I'd like to thank Kadosh Baruch Hu, as I said before, for letting us live in this community, which is so full of life, love, Torah, friendship. And I'd like to send a special thank you to a few people in this room who have traveled from very far at personal expense, at personal time, at probably angry wives when they get back home, for coming to join us in this simcha. I'll start with the earliest first, those who I've known the longest. My brother Avi, who has always been a tremendous role model for me, very young. Very young, watching him go through OJ and YU and law school, giving Daf Yomi in law school, and being a model of the Ben Aliyah, Balabas, of someone who's constantly striving for more in the community, programs and initiatives. And if you think I start them, he starts them first, and then I just copy him. So I want to thank you for constantly being that role model, the person who inspires me. Next, Zvi Schoenbach, my oldest friend, dating back from when we were 8 years old. Always the cooler guy in the room, so always striving to be that. If you want to know my bank passwords, he's always with your oldest friend, Zvi. So he's always in there. He's already great into that. It means so much to me that you're here. We've gone through so much of life together, and I appreciate you coming. Next, Akiva Diamond, who was sitting there before. There he is. There we go. Akiva was my roommate in Ner Yisrael. He was my shotgun, so I really wouldn't be here, literally, without him. We would not be married living here. Someone who's always inspired me as someone who's going through medical school and someone who's going through fellowship and constantly striving to learn more, to be better, to become better, to be someone who's really an anchor of his community. And finally, of those people who've flown in for this is my Charusa, Yaakov Berkowitz. Yaakov and I were I was zochet to live in St. Louis, in the city that he lived in. The first time I saw him learning and steiging and having chavrusas, and I was a little intimidated, so I went up to him one day and I said, I know you probably don't have time to learn with me, but if you have a good vart, just tell me the good varts. Let me be a sounding board if you're a good vart in Parsha and Torah or Halacha. And after that, we learned for 2.5 years, and thanks to him, I finished before the Daf Yomi because we did Nida, Krisus, Tamura, Arachin, and Megillah. So someone who constantly inspires me, is always striving for more, always trying to become better and learn better and cause to be Margaret's Torah. My parents, who have been here, who have from day one stood behind me, pushed me to the next level, let me go to yeshiva, let me learn Ner Yisrael for 2 years to go to Ner Yisrael. My father didn't. If he would have known that I wouldn't have started college for an extra year, he may not have sent me, but he wanted me to go to Ner Yisrael. Who have constantly been behind me every single way, every single step of the way, always giving me the confidence to move forward in life and to move forward in Yiddishkeit, and who I look up to in terms of becoming Bali Midos, people who, and somebody who people can rely on to always fulfill their needs. And my in-laws who are here, who are my second set of parents, who are really pillars of their community, but more than their community, they're pillars in their home, of role models who, when our first Shever Brachos was over, and we came home to live a normal life, and I went to sit down the Friday night, we had our meal was over, we benched, fantastic, we get a bagel, 12 hours of sleep on a Friday night, about to walk to bed, and Ali says, where are you going? And I said, no, I'm going to sleep, it's Friday night. she said, aren't you supposed to be learning at the table now? And I knew at that point that I'd have a very high bar to reach. I've never stayed up till 4 in the morning nodding and learning, but I try to become somebody who my father-in-law is, who is a role model in his community, to his children, and to his family. It's my mother-in-law who is Marvin's Torah, and who I was terrified to say my first Dvar Torah at the table in front of, but I'm getting used to it now. Someone who was always there for eitzah and advice. So I want to thank those people first. I'll get to my wife later. That I'm going to break down if I say anything else. Next thing, quickly, just to go through this, I want to thank the chavrusas who I've learned with over the years. Without those chavirim, they're not here right now, but I would not be standing here. They people who've been giving me chizuk. So I'm just going to read their names and the sentences that we've learned. Avi Friedman from OJ first year, Sanhedrin Malkus and Tinus, Tzvi Silberstein and Tomo, Shuas and Adar, Chaim Trop, Kedushin, Sukkah and Bambatzia. Michael Apfel, my year of Kolo, we learned Subas, Benjamin Moss, we learned that night in my year of Kolo, we finished Avodah Zarah. I was in fellowship in St. Louis, I learned with Chaim Shus, we finished Subas and Bava Basra we finished in some hotel in Orlando. Go for doubles if you want. For 8 months, we learned on the phone in some random hotel in Orlando and Daytona. Yaakov, Nida Krisos Barachim from Megillah, with Aviab and the Amachular Brachos. And for the last 2 years, what really helped me finish Shas. Friend Brian. I've never really learned Daf Yomi before, but Brian said it as a suchos of Shalema. Maybe learn some Daf Yomi. Horios, Chulin, Zvachim, Menachos, and Chorks. Okay. Thank you again for being here. As I spoke to Rabbi Goldberg earlier, a few weeks ago, this is a very uncomfortable position to be in, standing here in front of all of you. I've actually never been to a Siyum Hashas except for the big one in 2012, my birthday. That was the only Siyum Hashas I've ever been to, and there were 80,000 people. I've never actually gone to a personal Siyum Hashas. And in my head, I always kind of figured I'd be going to the Siyum of somebody who learned Shas, post-Skim, who would do really well in a smichas chaver bechina, somebody who lived the ideals of what Chazal wanted them to live, and I do not feel up to that level. So it's very weird for me to be standing here in front of all of you, somebody who, quote unquote, finished Shas. But I got a lot of nechama from the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah in your test says, Amarava, Yolam Yigros, always learn. Just learn. Yafagav de Shachach, even if you forget it. Yafagav de Loyoda my kamar, if you have no idea what you're saying, just learn. It's simple. 2 words, just learn. The point is, according to Rava, not necessarily that you understand every single word and the depth of meaning behind it, what Rashi wants you to understand, what Tosfos wants you to understand. It's great. But that's step 2. Step 1 is just learn. Just open up a Gemara and learn. It'll do something to you. Trust me. That's what Rava tells us. And later on in that daf, Amar Rav Yolam Yilmo Torah Yacher Gaf Yegeh. First learn, and then you'll be Yegeh. You'll go in depth. You'll figure it out. And again, over the past 15 years, that was kind of my methodology: is learn, and eventually I'll become a Talmud Chacham. I don't know. I hope so. I hope I understand some of it. Can't really read a Rabbi Akiva Eiger well, but I can read a Rashi. I'll be okay. And reading this Gemara is helpful to understand that. But sometimes, being somebody who's a Sinai, someone has a breadth in Torah knowledge, could be more important, could be more chashuv than somebody who's an Oker Haram, who can grind mountains together, who can grind those 2 things, figure out the amkut the sugya, figure out the depth of what Torah really wants us to know. The Pri Megadim paskins that if there is somebody who is a Talmud Chacham Mifulbal, someone who knows how to be Mifalbel in Torah and really pull out the depth. And there's someone who's a Baal Hora, someone who can paskin halacha. He's got a real width in terms of the Torah. He can go far and wide and understand different shas and poskim. He gets the aliyah first. Even though the Mefalbel, the bigger Talmud Chacham technically, goes second because we put more importance on reading. Put more importance on covering ground. At least in the beginning. Once you cover the ground, it's good to go deeper. Now that doesn't really help me so much because while I did do all of it, I don't feel like I have a breadth of Torah knowledge. Like I can quote you a Gemara in Nida and quote you a Gemara in Tainus. Got a couple here and there, but that's not really breadth. So does that count? Is that considered Sinai or not? Do we say that reading a lot of things is the same as knowing a lot of things? And in fact, the Magen Avraham writes, Aloi Mishnayos, someone who learns Mishnayos, Ve'eno Maven Pirish Advarim, and doesn't really understand the words, Ein Zen Nechshav Limud. Doesn't count. Sorry. You want to read Torah, you want to read Tehillim, you want to read Navi, Suvim, you're great. You're golden. You don't understand what you're saying? The words themselves can change who you are. But you want to read Torah Shabbal Peh, Mishnayos, and Gemara, Midrashim, that you need to understand what you're saying. I had a little chulsha believa. I felt a little bit of a pain when I saw that Magen Avraham because I don't necessarily know that, especially, thank you Brian, I don't really know a lot of menachos. I've read the words. Did every single daf make sense to me? Not all the time. It's hard, it's difficult, it's late at night. It's hard to understand those things. But Derech Hashem, he writes, that the higher level of haskala you have, the higher level of understanding you have, the more amount of shefa you're going to get, the more amount of godly abundance he's going to give to you. More and more, the more you understand. But even somebody who is lo higia l'shum haskala, eli hagoyom bilvad, someone who doesn't understand anything, he has no idea, he's just reading. He said he also gets some sort of shefa. He gets a little bit. And therefore every single Jew has a connection to Hashem, because even if you don't understand it to the depth that you're supposed to understand it, but you read the words, you're having a relationship with the Hakaras Baruch Hu, even B'dibur Ba'alma. The Baal HaTanya writes that while you get total schar for reading Torah Shebechsav, you read Torah, Nevi'im, and Suvim, you get schar for reading it, you have no idea. You read the words of Tehillim, it'll work. It'll work. My mother says Tehillim all the time on her WhatsApp, always saying Tehillim, asking me to say Tehillim. It works, even if you don't know what the words mean, because David HaMelech put something into those words. But if you want to read Torah Shabbal Peh, it doesn't work. The Baal HaTanya says, I know I said it doesn't work, but you should still do it. You know why? Every word, every sentence, every parak, every chapter, every sefer that you learn, he said, while in this world you may not understand it completely, but you're going to be zocha in the world to come. You're going to open up your bunk bed, you're going to lie down, you're going to look in the bookshelf in your room in Olam Haba, you're going to pull out a book and you're going to understand everything it says. Because the words came out of your mouth in this world, in the next world, you're going to get all of it. Don't worry about it. So even if you don't understand it now, do it. Just learn. Those two words, it's so easy. And the Baal HaTanya is screaming it. Just learn. It may not make an effect now. It may not make an effect on you in a week or a month or a year. But just learn. It's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which always stuck with me. And it's always something that gave me a lot of chizuk. And he says, I cannot remember the books I've read any more than the meals I have eaten. Can't remember them. Even so, they have made me. Those meals have made me who I am. And those books of Torah that we read, while we may not feel them, we may not remember this Chinese meal in 12 hours, you may even regret it in 7. But they've made you. They've made you move on to another day. And every single time we open up a sefer, whether it's a brachos or a tainus, or a kedushin, or a nida, the words that we read will make us. They will make you better people. They will make you better husbands and wives. They will make you better fathers, siblings, and neighbors. Just learn. That's all he's asking. Chazal had an incredible ability to understand what Hakaras Baruch Hu wants from us. We always say, Stamkol baraiso bar alma. He looked into the Torah and he created the world. And Chazal did the same thing. They just copied that blueprint. They put it into Shas for us. And in those six Sidrei Shas, the 6 Siddharim that Chazal separated Shas into Zroyim, Moed, Noshim, Nezikim, Kedushim, Kudshim, and Taras, They said this is the blueprint of how to create the world. And not only is it the blueprint to create the world, but we know that man is a representation of the world as a whole. This is the blueprint to create man, to create who you will become as people. Just follow this blueprint. It's so easy. Just learn and follow into that path. And I think Hakaras Baruch Hu allowed me to look into the Torah, and to look into Shas and say, I'm going to try and follow that a little bit. Zrayim, seeds. These are the seeds of growth that we put into the ground to let our lives sprout, let our relationship with each other, family, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu sprout. Hakadosh Baruch Hu planted me in a family. It was machshav Torah, it was machshav learning, it was machshav gemilas chasadim. They allowed me to go to yeshiva and OJ and Tomo, which was really the first introduction I had to learning. 15 years ago, almost to the day, we're 60 days off, 15 years ago, I sat down on Aleph Elul in Or Yerushalayim and opened up my first Gemara that I wanted to open. Not high school, that didn't count so much. But the first Gemara I wanted to open, Sanhedrin and Makos in the morning, Sanhedrin in the afternoon, and the dating started. I was able to create a relationship with the Torah, with learning. Next came Moed. Moed, as we know from the word Ohel Moed, which was the tent of meeting, is where the Jewish people had a rendezvous with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We were able to finally leave the dating period where HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to us, but a little bit, we never really saw him, and finally enter into a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to meet him, to have a rendezvous. And I was zocheh that I was able to go to Ner Yisrael, to learn by Tzvi Berkowitz, Yaakov's father, my Rebbe, who really allowed me to appreciate the engagement with Torah, to be able to recognize that there's something to it. You can talk to it, it can talk to you, you can live it. You can change who you are as a person, change what you want. Next comes, after you have the engagement period with Torah, comes the Nisuin, the marriage. Seder Nashim. I was zocheh that after I finished learning in yeshiva for 3 years, we got married, and I had a year to spend in Kollel. Now, on the one hand, Kollel is an incredible gift, but it also comes with something else. As a bacher, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. When you get married, there's something else that enters your life. You may have a love of Torah, you may have a love of learning, but now you have a love of something else. You have to figure out how to balance those two. This is the Nisuin. It's the way we all have to go through life. Those of us who are zocheh to be married recognize that you have a love with one thing which cannot detract from your love of another thing. You have to balance those all. When you have children, you're going to love your children, but it doesn't take away from your love of your spouse or your parents or your siblings. It adds to it. It makes it more beautiful. That was the year that I was able to spend learning in Kollel, recognizing that there's a balance that can be made between the responsibilities and the love you have with thing X, that sounds derogatory, with my wife, and another thing, learning. After Seder Nashim comes Seder Nezikin. Nezikin is damages, tort law, the halachos that determine what happens when you affect another person, when you damage another person. Now, in our hashkafa, we don't view the modern world as damages to us. We view it as an opportunity to be ma'ala the kedusha, to bring in more kedusha into our lives from things outside of our lives. Whether that be working with non-Jewish neighbors, or working with non-Jewish clients, or bringing in people who may not be Jewish to speak and give us words of chizuk into our shuls. We have this charge to live in the world of Nezikin, to live in the world where things are going to come and try and attack you, and you're going to thwart them off, and you're going to pull a ninja move and use those to be Mekadesh yourself. And starting that year, Seder Nezikin, I was able to enter dental school and recognize that even though you have all of these outside influences, which honestly for me was the first time I've ever had to deal with people who were not like me. Growing up, you grew up in a frum community, you then go to yeshiva in Israel where everyone's like you, everyone's Torah observant, you go to yeshiva, everyone's doing what you're doing and machshav what you're doing, and then you go in the outside world and you're like, oh, there are other people that exist. And a lot of them. We're only a couple percentage of them. And you have to recognize that you have the ability to live in a world and still be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. You have the ability to go home at night and learn at night. You have the ability to go home and make a Kiddush Hashem at work and show them how Jews act and how Jews behave and what kind of people we are to affect the rest of the world. Next we have Seder Kachim. Kedusha is a weird word. It's a word that we tend to translate as holiness.
He's done.
It's a word we tend to translate as holiness, but it really means to set something aside. It means that you're done with the Nezikin, you're done with the Sur Meirah, you've finished with that outside world, you've overcome those challenges. You recognize that you could be a Torah-observant Jew who's going to Makadesh Shem Shemo Barabim. You could be someone who comes home and makes a Kiddush Hashem at home. But then you have to live regular life. You're done with the Sur Meirah, but now what? And that's when we move to Boker Raton. Done with fellowship, done with school, and now we're leading to a regular life. And now the charge is to live a regular life, but live an elevated life. To physically live in this world, but try and strive for something higher above us. And as I said before, and I really truly mean it, because of the Rabbanim we have in this community, the Mechanchim we have in this community, they allow us to recognize that you can live here, but have your mind somewhere else. You can live a life of Kedusha that's set aside, where you're living in one plane, but your mind is in somewhere else, where you're trying to strive for high levels of Kedusha, and really to build a relationship with Hashem, because that's the point of it all. It's the point of it all. You've got to make yourself the best version that you can be. And that's what regular life is. That's Kedusha. That's just living the best life you can. And one of the ways you can do that is with Torah, mitzvos, with learning. But whatever way that fits your neshama, you have to strive to become that person who says, I'm going to live a regular life, but I'm going to make it elevated. I'm going to make it just fly and go. And finally, we get to Seder Taharos. For those of us who learned Brachos, the end of Brachos, Beis and Aleph, talks about the Tir Yoma and Tir Gavra, which article translates as the day passes and man passes. I really think the word Tahara means it's cleared. The day is cleared. The Tir Yoma, the clouds are gone, the moon comes up. We recognize that we can start fresh, start with a fresh slate. And as Rabbi Goldenberg said so beautifully, when you finish something, the simcha is not finishing. The simcha is you now have the tools. Whatever that simcha is, whether you're finishing a mishnah or a daf, or you're finishing a masechta or a shas, it doesn't matter. It's the ability to take what you just did. And it's nice that you finished it, and no one's saying it's not nice, but the real simcha comes for saying, and now I'm going to take my next step, but that next step is going to be from a different person. It's not that same person who started the masechta. I've taken it, I've cleared everything, it's a fresh slate, and now we're going to go on. Now we're going to become better people. And I would love to take this opportunity, finishing Shas, and again, I really view that as a community accomplishment, because I think every single one of you I have some connection to in terms of learning, in terms of growth, in terms of aspirations. And we all have this ability just to clear it. The Tiher, Taharas, just clear it out. Recognize you can start fresh and become a new person with everything that you've done before. All of this is really possible to one person in specific, and that's my wife, who, as I said before, from day one, this is the tie we wore at our engagement. And from that moment, I received so much chizuk of what a person is supposed to be, what a father is supposed to look like, what a husband is supposed to look like, whether it be from pushing me to go learn Friday night, or whether it be my year in Kola when I was tired after the end of the day and I wanted to relax at night, and she would say, "You're not going to night Seder tonight? No, you don't have to go, but you're not going?" And then I'd go, and it wasn't a pressure. It was more of, I assume you want to be at this level. This is where you want to be, right? I'm just here to hold your hand along the way. And to letting me go out in the mornings. Rebbe, I'm not a morning person at all, and when I started dental school, I asked my Rebbe what I should do, and he said, you know, at night your mind's going to be busy with a million things. I think you should get up at 5:30 and learn then. And I said, Rebbe, I'm in yeshiva now, and I never make it to the 7 o'clock shacharis. I usually daven at 8:15 in town. Like, I'm not going to get up early. It's not going to happen. He said, just try it. I think it'll be okay. And I got lucky, and I made it to the chavrusa a few times a week. The rest of the times I overslept, but it allowed me to get up early. And even after we had our first daughter, Daniela, and my second year of dental school, and she would say, I know, I'll get to feeding in the morning. You go in the morning. And now it's, okay, the baby's awake at night, and the kids are flying off the rafters. You guys are great, but sometimes at night you can go to bed a little better. She was like, no, it's okay, go to night Seder. I'll call you if I need you. And it was literally, I think, 5 years as I can remember, in the last 5 years, last week, I got a call at 8:30 saying, would you mind coming home? I need a cook for Shabbos. Would you mind coming home? I know it's no night seder. And that was the first time in 5 years, it could be 10 years. She asked me to leave a night seder in the middle of the seder. There's no chance I'd be here. She wouldn't have been pushing me, letting me grow, letting me become better and bigger, and inspiring our family. But the real inspiration comes from her because she, Allie, you inspire everyone around you, whether it be your students, your siblings, your family, me, our children. None of this would have been possible without you, and I thank you for that. The hour's getting late, and I thank you for listening. I'm going to finish off. I'm going to finish off Maseches Me'ilah now. The Gemara at the end of Me'ilah is discussing again.